welcome back to the journey. Welcome to this edition of End of Year 2022. 2022 is almost gone. It is, let's see, 8 o'clock here. So four more hours, and the new year is here. So, for those of you that have not watched a end of year video before, what I started back, I believe, in 2018 was the first end of year. And then 2019 was the start of New Year, New Goals. So what I do in these videos is the New Year's New Goals comes out the 1st or 2nd of January. And that talks about all the new goals I have set up for the following year, what I plan to get accomplished, what I plan to do, different ideas I have for the coming year, and basically my outline of how I want to get things done. So I went back today. I watched New Year's New Goal 2022 just to see the difference of what it was to what I was able to accomplish, what I wasn't able to accomplish, and everything like that. So I'm not going to talk about everything in the New Year's New Goal. If you want to see what I had planned and how everything turned out, then you can go back, watch the New Year New Goals 2022, and then you see this video here, which will talk about the end of year. I'm going to recap the year. I'll go back to the beginning of the year and go forward, talking about some of my ideas and thoughts on how this year went, along with answering any questions anybody has in the live stream. That's why I'm doing the live stream and not a pre-recorded video, because I know some people like to jump in. Good evening to you too, Michael. I know a lot of people like to jump in. They like to ask different questions, have different thoughts and views and everything like that. So let's go ahead. Let's jump into the year in review and go all the way back to the beginning of January 1st of 2022. So in that video, of course, I had a ring on this finger. Hello, DT. How are you doing again? Still have this cough and chest thing. Real quick, the family was next door at the homestead working on their property, doing some chainsawing. I'm going to move this camera tripod a little bit closer to me. And they're all hacking and yakking just like me. I said, we all need to quit smoking, although we all don't smoke. Like his little 8-year-old boy, I told him, I said, you got to quit smoking. You got that smoker's cough. And he's like, I don't smoke. I can't cough from smoking. And yeah, so something's going around. I don't know if it's just here in Arkansas, if you guys have stuff going on out there, but I have not been able to kick this cough or the phlegm on my chest. I don't get the phlegm until the evening. But after that tirade, let's go back to January. So I had a ring on this finger. I had somebody sitting next to me, Carla, and we were talking about how this year was going to progress. However, in January, we did not foresee a month and a half later, it would all upend and go two totally different directions. So that was the start of the year. January, February was splitting up, finding my own place. I've had people, including my buddy Steve, that's going to be moving out here next year, ask me or say, well, I've had people ask me, and I've had people say, like he said, that he can't believe I took $75,000 and put it into this restaurant with the condition of this restaurant needing so much work and damage and everything else. Even though if I put some money into the restaurant here, I could potentially make profit in the future for buying the building. A lot of people ask why I didn't move back into the shed and take the $75,000, which would have given me the $25,000 for a well. It would have given me $50,000 left over for solar. And I only plan to probably do like a $40,000 solar. So that would have left me another $10,000 left over. So the reason why in February, March, I ended up moving to the restaurant and not into the shed is, for those of you that don't know the story on the shed. So one of the goals at the beginning of the year was to get the everything out of Colorado. So for those of you that keep in touch behind the scenes of YouTube, Facebook, emails, letters, phone conversation, things like that, you guys get a little more in depth into my life of how my life goes. Some of the catastrophes I don't talk about because I don't do a whole lot of drama videos. I don't like the clickbait videos. I don't like just getting everybody on YouTube to make my video viral for that. Um, I have a firewood video that went viral that is high up there, almost to 1 million views now, over my hairdo. That wasn't planned, that just happened. So when people call me and have a more private relationship with me besides just on YouTube, they know the different things. So some people talk to me going out to Colorado or coming back from Colorado. So the shed was filled with a bunch of stuff from Colorado. Then I also took a bunch of stuff over to Carla's house in Marshall when we moved to Marshall in 2021. And so when I moved out of there, I not only had the stuff in the shed from Colorado, but I had to quickly move a whole bunch of loads of my stuff out of her house that we had stored in the upstairs and I had in the shed and in the yard and everything like that. I had to have a place for it. So instead of getting a storage unit that is not climate controlled out here, which would get a bunch of mice in it, just like the shed is filled with mice. That's one reason why I didn't go to the shed is because I've got to clean it completely out, get rid of all the mice, get the mice poop out there, get everything wiped down, cleaned out before I can get the shed set back up to actually live in like I was doing before. The second part was I have a bunch of stuff in there from Colorado. And then when I moved a bunch of stuff out of there, then that filled the shed completely. Not to mention, I went back to Colorado again in, I think it was May, when I ended up selling the ranch in Colorado. And I have all this stuff here in the restaurant. So the reason why I didn't move in the shed was first, the mice. Second was being filled with stuff. Third, there'd be no room for me. Fourth was I wanted running water. I wanted electricity. I didn't want to go back to roughing it and having to get a generator and all that type of stuff to get by. You also have to remember this was February, March time period. So it was still cold. Moved in here. Lisa didn't have any propane, had to get the propane filled up. So we had heat in here because this is like an ice box in the winter unless you have a heating source like I have the stove going right now. Beautiful day today, 60s again, but this concrete just radiates cold and makes it into an ice box. And then in the evening, of course, it's cooler. So then that cold air still comes through the walls on what I don't have with plywood because there's no insulation in this building. So that was the reason for a bunch of you guys asking why I didn't move to the shed and put my money into the homestead versus putting my money into this restaurant that's in distress in a way. When I could have already been back to the homestead, had water, had electricity, because wintertime couldn't get a well. Out here, it's like 4 to 6 months to be on a waiting list, and you have to have money in hand for a well driller. So if I wanted to move to the homestead and put the 75,000 in, I would have been in the shed with my stuff, filled with all my stuff, no space for me, and couldn't get a well drilled for 4 to 6 months anyhow. Same thing with electricity. I would have to buy solar that would have to be shipped. Back in February, March was all the supply shortages, the trucking issues. Furniture was like 6 months to a year out if you ordered furniture. It's not like now where you can go into the store and actually buy things again. So if I would have taken that risk, I might not have had solar for 6 months. I might have not had a well for 6 months, and there was just no room and it wasn't clean for me to live. So that is the main reasons compiled on why I moved in here. Another reason why was the dogs. I have the dogs as well, so the shed being filled up, It just was not the right circumstance, and I wasn't willing to make certain sacrifices. And like I said too, I didn't want to go get $200 storage units a month and be paying $200 a month in storage unit fees when I could buy this and have this as storage as well and already have electricity, water. Of course, I had to do a bunch of plumbing because the lines busted the couple days before I ended up closing and everything like that. And the lady was on a vacation. So there's been things I've had to do. It is what it is. Eventually, I'm going to gut this inside and out, redo this building, and that's going to be a future um, project for a future date in a future new year, new goal, which won't be next year. So that's not going to be part of the goals next year. So got moved in here February, March time period. Then just roughed it, trying to live with Lisa, um, not having my dogs here because she was here, and then finally getting to where I could close on this. I think we ended up closing in April or something like that. I don't keep track of dates. It's all on the titles. That's the most important part. But then May, I had that family reach out to my realtor, asked if I was willing to do a owner finance to help them out, which this was in the process back in January. So that took 5 months to get to closing on the ranch in Colorado. Of course, I didn't want to do a owner finance. I wanted to sell it outright, but it was a family that wanted to homestead, and having the fencing, the pig pen panels, and the shipping containers and stuff there that they would be able to use to homestead was important to me in a way, because then that gave them a foot up, not just buying land and then have to come up with $100,000 in fencing and having a well put in. I had already done all that at the ranch. So in May, I went back to Colorado. The down payment from that gave me the 65,000. I had 10,000 in saving at the time. I sunk my whole 10,000, the 65,000 from the down payment in Colorado to buy the restaurant here for the 75 grand. Of course, he paid 100,000 down, but I had realtor fees, I had taxes, property taxes, all that type of stuff. So that took out what, $35,000 out of my pocket right there. And so in May, when that closed up, I went out to Colorado to get a final load of stuff, and then I was going to start working this summer pulling the fence, um, because I was planning to pull fencing because I didn't think I was going to do a rent to own or have it sold at the time in January when I made the New Year's new goals. So he wanted all the fencing, the pig panels, and all that stuff. So he paid me a little extra money for the pig panels because that wasn't part of the for sale of the homestead. It was just the shipping containers, the camper trailer, the washroom building that I built, and all that type of stuff. So that worked out great. I didn't have to go back to Colorado. So I did 34 trips. For any of you that are still wondering how many trips it ended up taking me, it took me 34 trips, bringing animals out, bringing my stuff out, bringing out the side-by-side that I sold, the electric truck that I sold, grain silos that I sold, shelters, fencing, all that type of stuff. So 34 trips in the book, closed out by June. Don't have to go back to Colorado. Don't probably ever plan to go back to Colorado. I know I have friends and family in Colorado, but it's just going to be to the point. I've got my animals here. I can't leave the animals. They're just going to have to come here and get some benefit of animal love and walking with the goats and enjoying the new homestead out here. So that takes us up to June. I had planned to clear out the back of the rental property in Marshall, and I was going to try to get that sold. It turned out that the homestead and family next door that I had talked about in the New Year, New Goal 2022, had just bought the property on the opposite side of them. So they didn't need the acre that I was hoping to be able to sell. I was going to take that money, put that into the homestead. I also was going to have logging done. Ended up decided not to do the logging. I want to clear out the trees the way I'm doing it. Then I was in a contract until September for the whole homestead to be sold, or 15 acres to be sold, or 30 acres to be sold. Because at the time in my relationship, Carla didn't quite want to do as much work, and she liked the property, but didn't like how much work there was to do. So we had found a property here off the highway, a couple miles off the highway. It's all pavement. She didn't have to worry about her vehicle being busted up and all that. And it was fully fenced, fields already put in, and just had to have a house put on it, and it be a turnkey. Um, she was looking more for that. I don't quite care, for doing the work. Everybody's seen, I do what I have to do for my animals, do what I have to do, make whatever sacrifices I have to make in order to get where I'm going. And that same thing here. I'm here, I'm sacrificing not being at the homestead and spending the extra money in gas to take care of the animals. But at the same time, it's easier to come home, take a hot bath, take care of my body so my body can last longer to get me down the road to where I want to be, on the homestead, in my house that I build, with the animals, the farm, the orchard, all that type of stuff. So, September, the homestead came off the market. That was the end of that. And let me check real quick because my phone just clicked. I didn't know if somebody might have said something. No. So that takes us to September. And then I decided I wanted to, well, actually, let's kick back to June. Or let's kick back to May real quick. So I decided to open a snowball stand. For those of you that don't know about Silly Squirrel snowballs, my neighbor Becky and Todd, they bought the barn next to me, and they were doing a little shop, and I wanted to try to help them out. So I figured snowball stand. I wanted a snowball machine for myself, which would have been a lot cheaper than all the money I've invested in that now. Just for me, because it was so hot working out in the humidity. Snowballs cool you down real quick because it's ice hitting your tongue, and it just melts into your bloodstream and just chills you down. So I started a snowball stand in June. I went June to September. September, that closed. Then the homestead came off the market the end of September. So I just went through that in there because that's part of the year as well. And then in, I think it was July or August, for those of you that don't know, I lost Monkey, my 5th Anatolian that I had. So I am down to 4 Anatolian Shepherds. He squeezed underneath the fence out back, which isn't completed yet because I'm trying not to put my time into this place right now. I want to put all my time into the homestead. But he got under to go after an armadillo early in the morning, got out, tried to get in the gates in the front of the restaurant, couldn't get in, and went around my truck and got clipped by a semi right there on the highway right here in front of the restaurant. So that was not a pleasant time. I had a couple rough times this year on things that have gone bad, things that have been rough. Then later on, Minnie Mouse had herd litter, had complications with herd litter, lost both of those puppies within the first 5 days. She had them at 66 days. At 67 days, it's an emergency vet visit because it's a major problem at that point. They're not born at 67 days. For those of you that don't know, puppies are supposed to be born between 62 and 64 days. So at 66 days and the night of the 66th day, she was right there on that limit, but had the puppies. So luckily I didn't have to go to the vet to have surgery or anything like that. But that was another downside of this year. And then the latest downside, which I have not really completely talked about yet, is I just had a baby cow born a couple days ago. I've had either 6 or 7 baby cows born now over the years. I've never had this issue. For those of you that don't know about this, or those of you that have ranch, you know about this. It's called knuckling over, and you have minor cases where at the hooves they're bent like that. That's being knuckled over, and the tendon is too short to extend so they can put their foot down. Well, he's got severe case where it's 90 degrees in and the knuckles. So his legs and his knuckles are all 90 degrees in, so he can't extend his legs at all. I just got a hold of my vet. I think it was yesterday or day before. And like I said, I haven't made this video, and this was another downside of this year. Um, Doc Blair told me he needed to have physical therapy. I need to stretch his legs. I need to do them tight, but not too tight where I'm going to tear tendons, and not too tight where I end up snapping his legs. I need to do that 3 to 4 times a day, and that could take up to a couple months for his legs to fully go back out. He said it's due to the cow either having a small womb or him being turned a certain way in the womb where he wasn't able to move his arms and or legs, whatever you want to call them, inside the womb to get those tendons and ligaments to stretch as he was growing. He said there's no way to stop that. Along with a bunch of ranchers I talked to, a lot of them euthanize them and send them off for veal, and that's why there's a big veal thing, because you have babies. It's not a common thing, my vet said, and all these ranchers said the same thing. It's not a common thing, but it's a common thing. So a lot of ranchers have had it happen. If you have a bunch of baby cows, you tend to have it happen to you. Like I said, I've had 7, and this is 6 or 7, and this is the very first one I've ever had. So I'm I'm caught in between a rock and a hard place, because my vet says 3 to 4 times a day physical therapy. I'm 6 miles away one way, so that's 12 miles round trip. I can't afford to do 3, 4 trips a day driving back and forth with gas, wear and tear on my truck. Um, and if I bring him home to make him a bottle baby, then I run the risk of what Mama Silverton had last year that I had an issue with from her losing babies in the past. It broke that mother bond where she just wanted nothing to do with him. And me and Carla had to get her in the trailer. We had to lasso her horn, lasso her leg, and stretch her across the trailer where she couldn't kick us or gore us with her horns in order to get Hershey to nurse and build that mother baby bond again. So if I bring this baby home and do a bottle baby, I run that risk. So for me, and the way I've always been, I'm not a big medication person, but if animals need medication, I do go that way. I did ask Doc Blair if there's anything I should give. I said I had a couple people say to give Bose, Bose, um, and he goes, no. He goes, none of that stuff's going to help with anything. He said, you don't need to give him anything. He needs physical therapy. Tendons, ligaments, they need to be stretched. He said, chemicals and all that's not going to do anything. And this is coming from a vet. He could say, yep, give this, give that, and he's making money. And that's not my vet. My vet tells you how it is. He's not after the dollar. If you haven't seen my videos on the cheapest vet around, or the most expensive vet, I think was my last video on him, on just how cheap he is and how he helps you out and does all this type of stuff and tells you the truth. It's not, shot, 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 pill, 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 ointment, ointment, ointment. It's, what the animal actually needs. Same thing with the dogs, the 5-in-1s. He's going to make a farm call out here to the restaurant to give shots the end of January, the rabies vaccine. And the 5-in-1 shots, he says, vets do it every year. He said, but they're over vaccinating the dogs, he said they only need the shot every other year. So um, they had it last year, the 5-1. So he's not going to do it this year. So all I need this year on the dogs is the rabies. Um, so we're going to see how the little calf goes. I'm over there once a day to feed the animals. So I figured if I'm over there once a day, I'm stretching his legs. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be over there a bit longer. So yesterday I hauled water. So when I got there, I stretched his legs, and then I hauled water, I hauled feed, I moved a couple rounds of hay for the animals, did a little bit of bedding work, um, and filled my truck with firewood. And when I was done with that, I came back and stretched his legs again. So same thing today. I fed or stretched his legs, fed, went up, got a truckload of firewood to fill my firewood rack from the cold week that everybody just had. I want to make sure I'm set for the next storms coming up. It doesn't hurt on beautiful days to be prepared and get things done, whether rather than being out in ice and snow and cold trying to get your firewood when you need it. I like to be ahead of schedule. So today he got 2 stretchings as well, and I'm just going to try that way. Worst case scenario, I really don't want to. Hello, Duke and us. How are you guys doing today? Um, I really don't want to euthanize him because he's adorable. I don't know if anybody saw the post I put up of his pictures. Um, but I don't like putting animals down. I don't like euthanizing them. I don't like calling them whatever you want to call it. But if I do, um, on a homestead, things don't go to waste. And with it being beef, the pigs aren't going to get that. I'll end up butchering and making dog food. I won't eat him, but he, he won't go to waste. He'll go to the dogs, which will help with dog food. And if it goes that way, it's a sad way, but it's a truthful way, and it's just how things happen. Um, when you're on a homestead, it's Mother Nature. You can't control weather. You can't control sicknesses. You can't control birthing defects. You can't predict or control predators, mountain lion attacks, bear attacks, things like that. It's just the way it is. That's why some people, they want to be in the city, the circle of life. You've got that right. And that's why some people want to live in the city, have the 9 to 5 job. They don't have to worry about that. They're desensitized from seeing that on a regular basis. So when it happens, it's normally a family member or friend that they deal with, and not animals day in, day out. Not that I lose animals day in, day out, because you still see I still got Jackson, Baby Boy, Tiny Dude, Caesar, Cleopatra. So I do lose animals. Everybody loses animals. Um, but look at Tiny Dude and Baby Boy. They were my very first goats from 2016. I still have them. Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse bought them in 2016. They're still here. Um, and that's the oldest animals in my very first animal. So everybody else, I still have animals. They're just not as old, or I haven't had them as long because they weren't the first. Um, so that takes us through the bad parts, some of the bad parts that have happened this year. And there were plenty of good parts. Got the snowball stand going. I got this restaurant. I got my own place. I'm closer to the homestead. Instead of being in a relationship and having to do family time and family dinners and family get-togethers and things like that, where my time was diverted to other people that weren't necessarily my priority. uh Not saying I didn't care about her family and stuff, because I enjoyed hanging out with her mom and dad and her grandparents that lived up in their cabin that they built up in the mountains. um I sat there and talked to her grandfather forever. So I do love people time, but that's not my priority. It only became my priority because of relationship. And that's like any relationship. When you get in a relationship, you change who you are, you change the way you do things because it's a compromise. It's no longer just you. So, positive is out of that and I'm able to concentrate back on the homestead, able to get back to videos, get back to animal time, get back to getting things accomplished, and get closer to moving to the homestead. I also finally got this new phone just a little bit ago. So I know a lot of people had said um, that they don't care about the picture quality and they didn't want to see me go farther into debt to get a expensive phone to have a better camera because they were going to watch me anyhow because I have some subscribers still from 2016 still watching today. But they all have said it is good picture quality. They do enjoy it's not jittery, it's not cutting out, it's not pixelating. So that's what I wanted. And not just for you guys, but for me as well. So when I go back later on in my life and look back at year in reviews and new year, new goals and seeing my life unfold, I don't want to look at a pixelated video. I want to be able to see a clear video, good feed, and everything else. So I got the phone. Another good thing, got some forestry mulching done. For those of you that didn't see the forestry mulching videos, I got a bunch of forestry mulching done this year. So slowly but surely, getting things together. I have the Homestead family that's moving in. They just ordered their shed a couple weeks ago. So by the end of January, they're going to have the shed out by the homestead on their land and they're going to be moving in. So I'll have a new family of homesteaders living next to me. And then come September, October next year, I got my buddy Steve moving out here onto the homestead. And he's going to get a little piece of my homestead in the back corner. Um, and yeah, so things are coming around. Things are starting to get better. I also went through another bad circumstance, which I have not talked about. But since it's the year in review 2022, might as well throw this in too. So back in September, because I've had people ask and I've neglected to answer questions on this, on how how my rental house was doing. So back in September, my renter decided to stop paying rent. Um, he's disabled vet, same as me. I know he gets a paycheck, same as me. Went back in my phone. I looked out of the 14 months, I think it was 4 or 5 months he paid on time. The rest, he was late. And all those months he was late, not once did I charge him a late fee. The lady that owned the house before me charged him $50 a day late penalties. I thought that was insane. And I told him, I said, I would not do that. I did have in the contract in the first year, the first 12 months, he was under a written contract before we went to month because I wasn't re-signing after him being late that much. That I was going to have a late penalty. I just never enforced the late penalty because I try to help people. Just like the ranch in Colorado, trying to help that family. The homesteading family coming over to the homestead and getting that 30 acres, trying to help them out. That's just who I am. That's what I do. So I never charged him a single late fee for all those months that he was late, which was either 8 or 9 months. And in September, he decided to stop paying rent. Not only, you would think that's the bad part. He stopped paying rent. He left, that's over. Nope, that's where it's wrong. Uh, so he decided to do one better to me. He decided he wasn't going to vacate the property. Well, I called the sheriff and, well, didn't call sheriff. I went down, I talked to the sheriff because this is a small town. So you can talk to the judge face to face. You can talk to the sheriff face to face. It's not like a big city where you get a secretary and then that secretary sends you off to an office assistant and then the office assistant sends you to their protege and then you never ever get to the top of the line. Here, you can talk directly to who's in charge. If you want to talk to the lower people, you can, but if you ask to talk to sheriff or judge, they refer you right up to them. So the sheriff told me, since I'm ex law enforcement, he was telling me, he said, I hate to give you bad news. He goes, but that's why most of the cops here don't own rental properties. And after hearing all this, I understand why there's so many people on Facebook looking for places to rent here and there's nothing available. So he said they don't own rental properties here, the cops. For those of you that don't know, most law enforcement try to buy up rental properties because as a police officer, you work so many hours and you're on the go all the time. So you spend your money buying snacks and stuff like that, donuts, coffee. For those of you that want a kid, I did. I drank a lot of coffee, ate a lot of donuts. That comes out of our pocket. We don't get paid for that. Um, and you get paid a very small salary being a cop compared to other things like electricians, plumbers, all that type of stuff. So a lot of law enforcement get into the rental houses and they make a sub income or extra income off of those rental properties in order to survive. Um, Otherwise, you can go into debt being in law enforcement because you spend so much money doing that. And then, of course, like if you have a small kid in a situation, then you want to buy a blanket or buy a teddy bear for that kid to make that day better. That comes out your pocket, not the department's pocket. And so, anyhow, going back to where I was taking this, so he told me in Arkansas, it is a tenant state, and tenants get like a lawyer, they get all this self help, they get the fees waived, and all this type of stuff. It's very pro tenant. So it's very hard to get a tenant out of your property. It can take 6 months to a year. So Roy, knowing this, decided he was going to stay, try to put an eviction notice up on the door. He refused to get out. Talked to the sheriff, like I found out, I have to hire a lawyer, go to court, do all this stuff, spend all this money, thousands of dollars, where I know I'm not going to get my money back out of him. And he decided to stay all the way into December, into this month that we're still in. So he finally got out, and I had Marshall Police Department come in. They turned their body camera on. They went through the house. They verify that he's no longer living there. No bed, no food, no stuff like that. He vacated. There was stuff in there, which I'm going to tell you he did one more to me. But he finally vacated. So now I have the rental house on the market. I'm going to just try to sell the house. I'm not going to try to fix it back up to rent. I'm not going to try any of that. I just want to go ahead and get the house sold. So that way, that gives me the money to go ahead and get a well put in the homestead, or get the dozer to fix the road on the homestead and get the house site prepped, or do more forestry mulching or whatever. So not only did he stop paying rent, not only did he decide he was going to stay there for all these months and not vacate the property, but then he decided he's going to trash the property. Left urine and feces in the toilet, put cigarette butts all over the house, all over the carpet, food all over the carpet, punched a bunch of holes in the walls, left several 16-foot trailers worth of garbage in there, couches that are all stained up and stinky, just ravaged the house. So as soon as I get my bills caught up, because I don't want to put more money on my credit cards right now, because there's no point in paying interest to clean out a house that might sit there for a while. So I'm going to wait till I have my cards paid off, which will be into February. Then I'll go ahead, take my 16-foot livestock trailer down. So much for being handicapped. Well, DT, so much for being a vet. A lot of vets, do the right thing. And when we're both vets, for him to do that to another vet, that shocked me as well. But February, I'm going to start spending hundreds of dollars taking the stuff to the dump. Now, I've had people say, why don't I just burn it since we don't have ordinances here that I can burn it? Tell you the truth, that would be probably super simple. And there's a burn area that he burned and threw all this glass and everything over the backyard that I have to clean up as well. However, from being in the military, I know burning feces causes lung issues, and that's why a lot of vets are having issues from being over in the desert burning feces with diesel and all that. What do you think burning the plastics, the synthetic fibers of these couches, and all that's going to do? I don't want to breathe that. It's right there next to a homesteading family that has chickens and animals. I don't want all that smoke going over there. I don't want to have somebody having to breathe that. I know that would save me a lot of money, but that's the same thing of me wanting to help others is I want to do the right thing. And yeah, that's going to save me money, but that's not right for I have to breathe all that stuff as well. But others right next door, within an acre and a half that I can throw a rock and hit the house, no problem. They'd be breathing it. If their houses aren't insulated, like this building and most of the houses out here aren't insulated, that's going inside their house. That's their kids. That's them. Everybody breathing it. I don't want to go that way. So that's my rental house horror story. So that's how the rental house is going for everybody wondering. I cleaned up the front yard. I got to clean up all the trash on the inside when I have the money in February and March. And I'll be talking about all that in the New Year, New Goal video, either January 1st or January 2nd. And besides that, that was pretty much my year in review for 2022. And I hope everybody had a great year. If you had some downside, just remember you had some upside. Life goes up and down. You just got to hold on tight and enjoy the ride. But that's pretty much it. So hope everybody had a great year. I hope the new year is going to be good for everybody else. I'll be making my new year, new goals video coming up. I'll probably do the Sunday, Monday vlog tomorrow since it's New Year's. Not sure. I'll probably do it at 8. I'm not 100% sure. Don't hold me to it. But with that, keep working. Good luck, Alien. Thank you, DT. I appreciate it. So with that, enjoy your New Year's Eve. Enjoy your New Year. And if you're not out there homesteading, get out there, get some homesteading done. If you want to get out the cities, get to the country, make those sacrifices, make things happen. There's no time like today to get things done. If you want to get to the city and you live in the country, then start selling the farm and get to the city. We all know where we want to be. We all know what we want to do. We have a small lifetime. If you look at the earth, if you believe it's 1,000,000 years old, or if you don't believe that or whatever, humans normally don't live past 100, 120 at the oldest. So depending on your age, how much life do you have left? Enjoy it while you have it and make the new year a positive one, not a negative one, a positive one. With that, remember, live happy, live free. That's the only way to be. Thank you for being part of the journey, and I'll talk to you guys later.